Morning and welcome to Paraguay. Now, I've stayed in some dumps the last couple of months, so I decided to stay in a good place here. I like this hotel, Grand Hotel Paraguay. Now, I'm not going to tell you a lot about Paraguay and its history and its culture. I'm going to tell you just one little interesting tidbit about Paraguay that's got to do with the woman on the back of the Australian $10 note. So Mary Gilmore is well known for her writing and her poetry, and that's why she's on the back of the Australian $10 note. However, she was a bit of a radical. She was a socialist and a lefty, wrote for the Bulletin. And back in the 1890s, she was tied up in a movement called the Utopian Socialists, led by a firebrand named William Lane, who inspired people to give Australia the miss after the end of the gold rush and the shearers' strikes and the 1890s depression. So in 1893, William Lane, Mary Gilmore and 200 others came here. Centro Comunitario Nueva Australia. Yep, they created a new Australia colony in Paraguay, founded on Methodist principles of hard work, no alcohol and no sex before marriage. Now, if you take a whole bunch of Australians, take them halfway around the world and tell them they're not allowed to drink alcohol or have sex before marriage, it ain't gonna work. And surprisingly, it didn't work. So the colony sort of disbanded. Some people founded a new colony just up the road called Nueva Londres, New London, somewhat ironic. Some went back home and some stayed. Mary Gilmore was one of those who went back home, lived in Australia till the 1960s and wrote magnificent poetry and is on the back of the $10 note. And here in Nueva Australia, you have the descendants of some of the people who founded the colony and still live here. So welcome to the colony of Nueva Australia in Paraguay. And that is just a quick glimpse from Paraguay before we go to Montevideo in Uruguay. And what a hustling, bustling city it is. Uruguay and Paraguay are often put in the same basket because people think they're neighbouring countries. Actually, point of fact, they don't share a border. Argentina and Brazil come around between them. The other thing that's interesting when comparing Paraguay and Uruguay is Uruguay has a per capita economy 4 times as large as Paraguay. Paraguay seems to be a lot poorer, Uruguay a lot richer. Although you wouldn't tell that from walking around this particular part of town. Whilst there are some remnants of the old colonial architecture, a lot of the area around here looks pretty run down. But this provides a really cool kicking off place for my travel on a ferry to Buenos Aires in Argentina. And I've got to tell you, this is my 4th time here in Buenos Aires. And really, all I've come for is a gap between Uruguay and Brazil so I can get some lamb and some steak. The food here in Buenos Aires is exceptional. When a major city has a park like this right in its heart, you can't help but like it. I'd think about living here if only I spoke fluent Spanish, but you can only get so far with una cerveza. Just by the by, the ferry that goes from Montevideo to Buenos Aires is made in Tasmania. The Maui statues are without doubt the most famous part of Easter Island, Rapa Nui. The Rapa Nui came here about 800 years ago. And even though it's Chilean territory, Maui statues like this are on other Polynesian islands, which is further evidence to the fact that people, the Rapa Nui, were not ethnically South American, they were Polynesian. Prior to the coming of Europeans, they had rather large populations here. But after the coming of Europeans and Peruvian slavers, together with smallpox, the population of ethnic Rapa Nui shrunk to as small as just over 110 about 120 years ago, and the ethnic Rapa Nui nearly became extinct. They have recovered and have an autonomous status within the country of Chile today. I still think of Malcolm Fraser when I see these statues. Afternoon, and welcome to what is said to be the highest and driest part on the earth. The Atacama Desert in Chile, over 2,000 metres. And dry. This white stuff around me is not ice and snow, it's salt. Not as spectacular as the geyser field in Iceland that gave every geyser its name, but geysers nevertheless. Now, Chile is the 192nd country I've visited in the world out of 193. This will be my second last travel video. The reason I can't do my last travel video is because I can't visit Sudan right now because the war is going on. It's a great tragedy for the people of Sudan. The 4 key lessons in life I've learned from visiting almost every country in the world are, firstly, most people want the same thing. They want a better future for their children. They just have a different definition of what is better, which leads me to the second lesson, which is listen to understand, don't listen to argue. I try to do this, often fail, but listen to other people's perspectives. Don't try and change their mind, just try and learn. Number 3 lesson is never underestimate people's ability to be hypocrites. The 4th thing is never underestimate people's ability to be stupid. I started these videos for my brother Ben. He died 10 years ago, so it's time for me to recognise the fact and let's stop these travel videos. I'm about to start Life 3. Life 1 was growing up, Life 2 was being an aid worker and all the other stuff that I've done since then. Life 3 is going to be something new. Visiting every country in the world, I've learned a lot from a lot of people. Now it's time to apply some of that knowledge. Anyway, if you've watched any of the other 184 videos, thank you for doing so. This is my penultimate one. There'll be one more. That'll be Sudan. Don't know when. But other than that, hasta la vista, baby.